and China. Then, an exclusive interview with Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky. We talk about the counteroffensive. Is it as slow-going as it seems? And why? And what does Kyiv need from the West to speed it up? But first, here's my take. When I speak to people about right-wing populism these days, I notice that many tend to believe that it's old news. Populist leaders captured the world's attention in 2016 with the Brexit referendum and then later that year with Donald Trump's election victory. Now, 7 years later, many seem to feel it's past its prime. Trump was defeated in 2020 and is under indictment. Brexit has been a messy failure. A majority of Britons now regret that it passed. But while it's true that some populist heroes and causes have been battered, the core appeal of these movements persists and has actually gained ground in recent months. Consider Spain, which was one of those countries long considered immune to right-wing populism because, like Germany, Spain once suffered under a right-wing autocracy. The Conservative Party, Vox, founded a decade ago, was long seen as too extreme to make real inroads in the political system. Today, it is the country's third largest party. In May, it doubled its vote share in regional and local elections and now governs in many places. In this weekend's elections, it is likely to continue to make gains. In Germany itself, the Alternative for Germany, AfD, once seen as taboo, has won back-to-back local elections in the country's east. Nationwide, it is now polling in second place, roughly tied with the Social Democrats, Germany's main leftist party. In Italy, the birthplace of fascism, Giorgia Meloni of the far-right Brothers of Italy party has been serving as prime minister since October. While she has moderated her stance in many ways, she continues to praise the Movimento Sociale Italiano, a now defunct fascist organization to which she once belonged. Sweden and Finland have both seen the rise of far-right parties that are gaining strength and political power. The Dutch political system now has several populist parties, some brand new, and the tensions produced by their rise recently led to the resignation of that country's longest-serving prime minister, Mark Rutte. In France, some polls show Marine Le Pen winning the next presidential election. Why is this happening? Well, Europe is going through tough times. Russia's war in Ukraine and the sanctions against Russia have impacted Europe more severely than virtually any other part of the world. The continent has been forced to abandon its addiction to cheap Russian energy and find alternatives, usually more costly. The rest of its trade with Russia has also collapsed. Meanwhile, cheap energy, new subsidies, and a better regulatory environment are making some European companies think about moving their factories to America. But it's not really about economics. Spain's economy is healthy. The country grew at 5.5% last year, and its inflation rate is among the lowest in the Eurozone. But that growth is varied, and there are places in Spain like Aragon, Spain's Ohio, where deindustrialization has left people feeling dispossessed. Regions like Aragon exist all over Europe, and they add to a sense of despair and frustration with the country's establishment and the EU's elites. The Ukraine war has also led many in the EU to worry about the price that they are paying for a conflict that they think doesn't directly threaten them, especially since that is what many populist leaders tell them. If I had to point to one issue, however, it is the one that has always been at the heart of the rise of modern far-right populism: immigration. Everywhere you look, you see the fears of uncontrolled immigration have produced political rewards for the so-called anti-globalists. COVID destabilized many developing countries in the southern hemisphere, which then exacerbated poverty and violence as those countries struggled. The Ukraine war has caused a once-in-a-lifetime movement out of that country on one side of the world, while the government's brutal crackdown in Venezuela has led to another one of similar magnitude on the other side of the world. Climate change adds to this toxic group. When you put it all together, you end up with a historic movement of people cross the border. Global leaders are struggling to solve the problem. The Biden administration has taken several measures to address the crisis at the border, and as a result, the flow of migrants into the U.S. in recent months has slowed considerably. It's working with other governments in the hemisphere to tackle some of the issues that are driving out migration. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is trying to forge a new asylum policy that would move illegal asylum seekers to Rwanda or elsewhere for evaluation. Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis in Greece has pledged to extend an existing wall between his country and Turkey by more than 100 kilometers over the next few years to tamp down illegal border crossings. But I worry that as the pressures for migration increase, the rhetoric from the right will get louder and noisier. Donald Trump is well aware that hostility to immigration was his ticket to the White House in 2016. And at some point, as the demagogues raise their rhetoric and scare more people, the center will not hold. Go to cnn.com/Fareed for a link to my Washington Post column this week. And let's get started. My first guest today is America's diplomat-in-chief, Antony Blinken. The biggest crisis during his tenure as Secretary of State has, of course, been Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Blinken has been deeply involved in holding allies together and maintaining close contact with the Ukrainians. We met on the sidelines of the Aspen Security Forum on Friday. Mr. Secretary, pleasure to have you on.
Great to meet you.
Tell us what you can sense of what is going on in the counteroffensive that Ukraine is attempting with Russia. So far, the reports seem to be it is very slow and very tough going.
Well, first, Fareed, put this in perspective. In terms of what Russia sought to achieve, what Putin sought to achieve, they've already failed. They've already lost. The objective was to erase Ukraine from the map, to eliminate its independence, its sovereignty, to subsume it into Russia. That failed a long time ago. Now Ukraine is in a battle to get back more of the land that Russia seized from it. It's already taken back about 50% of what was initially seized. Now they're in a very hard fight to take back more. These are still relatively early days of the counteroffensive. It is tough. The Russians have put in place strong defenses, but I'm convinced that with the equipment and support they've received now from more than 50 countries, with the training that their forces have gotten, and many of the forces who've gotten that training have not yet been put fully into this fight, and maybe more than anything else, with the fact that, unlike the Russians, the Ukrainians are fighting for their land, for their future, for their country, for their freedom. I think that is the decisive element, and that's going to play out. But it will not play out over the next week or two. We're still looking, I think, at several months.
So if you look at what the Ukrainians are up against, is that minefields, then trenches, then Russian artillery. One of the reasons that it's proving so difficult is that they have no air power. If the U.S. Army were to do this, the United States would have massive air power, lots of bombing, clear the way, make it possible for the troops to then move forward. Why not give the Ukrainians the F-16s that they are asking for, because that will make this counteroffensive much more effective?
Treated every step along the way. In fact, going back before the Russian aggression, when we saw the storm rising, and we made sure going back to Labor Day before the war, Christmas before the war, that they started to get in their hands the equipment they would need if the Russians went forward. Javelins, Stingers. They had that on hand. They were able to repel the attack against Kyiv. They were able to save their country from being taken entirely by Russia. Every step along the way ever since, we've worked to try to get them what they need when they need it. But it's not just the equipment itself. It's the training. It's the maintenance. It's the ability to use it in combined arms operations. All of that takes time. If a decision were made to actually move forward on the F-16s tomorrow, it would be months and months before they were actually operational.
But then why not make the decision so that they can get them?
So this is what we're working on now, because as I said, it's not enough to give them F-16s. They've got to be trained. The training program is moving forward in a number of countries. All of that's happening. But I'm not a military expert. I think you've heard Chairman Milley, Lloyd Austin, Secretary of Defense, speak to this. We believe that what they have and what they've been trained on is what they need to be effective, including dealing with the Russian mines. But it is hard going.
But they feel differently. When I talk to Ukrainians, they say there's a pattern here. Every time we ask for something, we're first told you can't have it, you're not yet ready for it, you don't have the training for it. And then from HIMARS through cluster bombs, eventually we get it, but we get it late, and why not have given it to us earlier if you're trying to make a difference on the battlefield?
So if I were in the shoes of our Ukrainian friends and partners, I'd probably be saying exactly the same thing. And President Zelensky's been extraordinary as a leader and in trying to galvanize the international community along with us to provide what they need. But the other thing is this. There are 50 some odd countries in this coalition in support of Ukraine. Lloyd Austin's been leading this process on the military side, and different countries do different things at different times, and it all complements each other. So, for example, we have certain munitions that we provided to the Ukrainians, including the HIMARS. Other countries have provided some munitions that have a longer range because as the Russians move back their command and control, as they move back some of their supply. Depots, out of range in some cases of what we've given them, the munitions that other of countries coming together and assuming their responsibilities.
Next on GPS, when we come back, I ask Secretary Blinken about the other big challenge facing the United States, China.
When I think about the history of black television, I think about progress.
See It Loud, the history of black television. New episode tonight at 9 on CNN.
I will be a travel influencer.
Hey, I thought you were on vacation.
It's too expensive.
Use Priceline. They've got deals no one else has.
What about work?
I got you.
Looking great, you guys. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
The first time you connected your GoDaddy website and your store was also the first time you realized.
Well, we can do anything.
Cheesecake cookies?
The Chookie.
Manage all your sales from one place with a partner that always puts you first. Start today at GoDaddy.com.
Sleep more deeply and wake up rejuvenated. Purple Mattresses' exclusive Gel Flex Grid draws away heat, relieves pressure, and instantly adapts. Sleep better. Live purple. Visit purple.com or a mattress store near you.
Beaches, Rhythm and Blues, Caribbean Seal. Now on. Visit beaches.com.
Young lady who was mid-30s, a couple of kids, recently went through a divorce. She had a lot of questions when she came in. I watched my mother go through being a single mom. At the end of the day, my mom raised 3 children, including myself. And so once the client knew that she was her, we were able to help her move forward. The client won't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Why did we choose Safe Flight? For us, driving around is the only way we can get our baby to sleep. So when our windshield cracked, we can't drive. We needed it fixed right. We went to safelight.com. There's no one else we'd trust. Their experts replaced our windshield and recalibrated our car's advanced safety system. They focus on our safety so we can focus on this little guy.
Safelite Repair, Safelite Replace.
For the ones finding new ways to ensure the job always gets done. For the ones wearing many hats. For the ones who are hands-on, even from far away. And the ones keeping business moving forward. We are Grainger, offering professional-grade industrial supplies, plus real-time product availability and access to experts ready to answer your toughest questions. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
It's the ADT Safety Days event. Get up to 30% off your system. Now, ADT systems feature Google Nest products. You can install a system yourself with self-setup, featuring no long-term contracts and free shipping, or have a system installed by our security experts for convenience and peace of mind, so you can keep worries away from your walks, your vacations, and even your staycations. There are more reasons than ever to have a home with no worries. The ADT Safety Days event. Call or shop online today to save up to 30%.
It's hard to contain your excitement when you get something you've really wanted. Like the gold standard in automotive protection, WeatherTech floor liners. With deep sculpted channels and laser measured for total protection in the front, back, and even up the sides.
Dad, you're going viral.
What? WeatherTech me.
So don't be shy. Enjoy. Order your premium American-made products at WeatherTech.com.
The long-lasting scent of Gain Flames made it smell like Dave was in his happy place, the massage chair at the mall. But he wasn't. Gain Flames with OxyBoost and Febreze.
Closed captioning brought to you by InVetHelp. Call 1-800-710-0020.
Do you have an invention idea but don't know what to do next? Call InVetHelp today. They can help you get started with your idea.
Call now. 800-710-0020.
Last month, Secretary of State Blinken went to Beijing for meetings with Chinese leaders, including Xi Jinping himself. The State Department said the two sides had candid, substantive, and constructive discussions, which is a way of saying there were no diplomatic breakthroughs. So what is the state of the U.S.-China relationship? More now of my interview with Antony Blinken. Mr. Secretary, when I travel around the world, particularly when I talk to Asian diplomats, I get a message about U.S.-China relations, which is they're wondering where this is going, whether there is now a kind of an ongoing ratchet effect, a tit for tat. The United States puts certain kinds of restrictions on China. China will then respond. Or is there a possible stable equilibrium that we are arriving at? In other words, as one Asian diplomat said to me, what I'm trying to understand from the Americans is, are they done? Or is this just going to continue and continue?
Well, I'm going to say two things. First, we are working to put some stability in the relationship, to put a floor under the relationship, to make sure that the competition that we're in doesn't veer into conflict, which would not be in our interest, their interest, or anyone else's. And that starts with strengthening our lines of communication, talking, engaging, working through as best we can our profound differences, and at least being clear about them so that they're not misunderstandings of intent, and at the same time looking to see if there are areas where we can cooperate. There's a clear demand signal that I'm hearing around the world, everywhere I go, that each of us, the United States and China, will responsibly manage this relationship. Because, of course, that has an impact not just on us, but on countries around the world. That's exactly what we're doing. And I think China's heard that demand signal as well. So I had hours of conversation with my Chinese counterparts when I was in Beijing. Janet Yellen, the Treasury Secretary, was there, did the same thing. John Kerry was just there. Jake Sullivan's been engaged. And all of this is a process of trying to at least put some stability into this and to see if we can be very clear both about our differences and where we can cooperate. Now, we've been very clear, and I was very clear with my Chinese counterparts. We will continue to do and say things that China will not like, just as they're going to continue to do and say things we won't like. The test for us is whether we can manage our way through that, and to make sure that we sustain these lines of communication, that we continue to talk, and that we work on, as I said, both dealing with the differences and seeing if we can cooperate. That's the way we're approaching it. I think it's the responsible thing to do.
I mean, you're talking, but there's no evidence on climate, on nuclear arms, on defense designs.
It starts with talking. We weren't doing a lot of talking before. Now we are. We have different groups that are engaged or about to engage on discrete issues that are problems in the relationship, where I believe we can, I think, get to a resolution. At the same time, there are a number of areas where it's clearly in our interest to see if we can find ways to cooperate. We're starting to talk about that. Now, these are early days. The proof will be in the results. But my own sense is there's a recognition that if we're each going to play the game of holding each other to sort of, clearing the field, erasing the board before we do anything, we're never going to get anywhere. And the demand signal on them to engage responsibly is strong, is clear, is loud from around the world.
One of the most sensitive issues, of course, is the military side, nuclear weapons, Taiwan. It seems it's going to be very difficult to do this because there's not going to be much engagement with China's defense minister since he's currently under sanctions. Henry Kissinger met with him. Why not lift the sanctions so that you can have straightforward military-to-military talks to try and alleviate some of these tensions?
Look, as a practical matter, those sanctions don't prevent the minister from engaging or us engaging with him. So there's no practical impediment. It is a political decision, in effect, for China to decide whether or not he should be engaged.
Would you engage with somebody if you were?
It's something that each system, each country has to decide for itself. We've made very clear that we think it's a responsibility to have these military-to-military contacts, to have this dialogue, especially to avoid any miscalculations, any misperceptions of what we're each doing. So we'll see where China comes out on this.
But U.S. is not going to lift sanctions on them.
All I can tell you is that we believe that this part of the conversation is important. It would be good to resume it. China has to decide whether it's prepared to do that.
Let me ask you about Iran. President Biden campaigned saying he'd be back in the Iran deal. He did not do that. He tried to search for a longer, better deal. It's gone nowhere. At this point, Iran is days, by some estimates, away from the capacity to enrich, which puts it on a path to weaponize, the potential to weaponize. You used to criticize Donald Trump for leaving Iran that close. Isn't it a fair criticism of you and your administration? You haven't managed to do anything to shorten that.
First, it was a terrible mistake to pull out of that agreement because we had Iran's nuclear program in a box. It's now, you're absolutely right, gotten out of that box.
But then why not just have gone back into it?
That's exactly what we sought to do. And we engaged intensely, not just us, our European partners, the UK, Germany, France, and actually China and Russia as well, to see if we could get back into mutual compliance with the JCPOA and the nuclear agreement.
Well, but to be fair, you asked for new conditions.
Actually, no. We fundamentally, of course, there have been some developments and some changes since the time we got out of the deal and the time we were trying to get back in it. But fundamentally, what we tried to do was to get back into the existing agreement with some modest modifications. An agreement was on the table. Iran either couldn't or wouldn't say yes. We're not about to take any deal. Of course, it has to meet our security objectives. It has to meet our interests. So we made a very good faith effort to get back into compliance with them. They couldn't or wouldn't do it. We're now in a place where we're not talking about the nuclear agreement. We are very clearly making it known to them that they need to take actions to de-escalate, not escalate, the tensions that exist in our relationship across a whole variety of fronts. We'll look to see if they do that. Maybe we'll have an environment where we can get back into a conversation about their nuclear program. Right now, we're not in it. But of course, we're not standing around doing nothing. We are continuing to work out, to develop, to flesh out every possible option for dealing with the problem if it asserts itself. Keep in mind, of course, that the fissile material, which is what the deal was designed around, is one critical piece. Weaponization, actually having an explosive device, is another. To the best of our judgment and that of many others, they have not pursued that work in a number of years. If they were to restart that part of the program too, and these two things came together, then it would become an even more urgent problem. But we are working across a whole series of lines of effort to push back on them, to make sure we have a strong deterrent, to make sure we have the appropriate pressure, and then to see if we get back to an opportunity where we can work on a nuclear deal. We continue to believe strongly that diplomacy is the best way to resolve this problem, that compared to all the other options, it's the one that can produce the most sustainable, effective result. But that doesn't mean that the other options aren't there, and if necessary, we won't resort to them.
Meanwhile, are you trying to restrain Prime Minister Netanyahu from launching some kind of military intervention?
We're in very close contact and coordination with Israel, just as we are actually with a number of other countries that are deeply concerned about Iran's nuclear program, as well as its many other destabilizing activities in the region. Countries have to make their own decisions about their national interest, their national security. We obviously share views, share information, seek to work together, but fundamentally Israel will make its decisions about its national security.
Mr. Secretary, pleasure to have you on.
Thanks. Great to be with you.
Next on GPS, the international man of the moment, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky. We'll be back after this break with my exclusive interview from the Aspen Security Forum.
You know, if you were cash back and you could earn on everything with just one card, Chase Freedom Unlimited. So if you're off the racket or crab bracket, you're cash backing. Cash back on flapjacks, baby backs, or tacos at the taco shack.
Nah, I'm working on my six-pack.
Switch to a king suite.
Book a silent retreat.
Silent retreat. Oh, hold up. Here. I can't talk right now. I'm at a silent retreat. Cash back on everything you buy with Chase Freedom Unlimited with no annual fee. How do you cash back? Chase, make more of a choice.
So many hotels.
Trouble booking the family vacay? Come on. Comfort's free hot breakfast for the whole family. And waffles. And splendid pools. Book direct at choicehotels.com.
Every day, more dog people are deciding it's time for a fresh approach to pet food. Developed with vets, made from real meat and veggies, portioned for your dog, and delivered right to your door. It's smarter, healthier pet food. She found it. The feeling of finding the psoriasis treatment she's been looking for. So Tic2 is the first of its kind, once daily pill for moderate to severe plaque psoriasis. For the chance at clear or almost clear skin. It's like the feeling of finding your back is back. Or finding psoriasis can't deny the splendor of these thighs. Once daily Tic2 is proven to get more people clearer skin than the leading pill. Don't take if you're allergic to Tic2. Serious reactions can occur. Tic2 can lower your ability to fight infections, including TB. Serious infections, cancers including lymphoma, muscle problems, and changes in certain labs have occurred. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, liver or kidney problems, high triglycerides, or had a vaccine or plan to. Tic2 is a Tic2 inhibitor. Tic2 is part of the JAK family. It's not known if Tic2 has the same risks as JAK inhibitors. Find what plaque psoriasis has been hiding. Ask your dermatologist about Tic2 for clearer skin. So clearly you. Tic2. Tic2 is a Tic2 inhibitor. Tic2 is part of the JAK family. It's not known if Tic2 has the same risks as JAK inhibitors. Find what plaque psoriasis has been hiding. Ask your dermatologist about Tic2 for clearer skin. So clearly you. Tic2. Psoriasis has been hiding. Ask your dermatologist about Tic2 for clearer skin. So clearly you. Tic2.
It was deep into the winter freeze when Ryan and Brent
Men, how many bathroom trips are you making each day? Try Super Beta Prostate Advanced, the #1 selling formula in its category. Made with Prostafend, a triple action blend to help reduce urges to urinate. Find it at Walmart or these retailers.
When Lila was ready to sell her ring, she sent it to Worthy, where they took care of everything and auctioned it on her terms. Then, Worthy sent Lila her money. You're worthy of more. Get started at worthy.com.
This is a flight bed frame. Timeless design, enduring materials, simple to assemble, the flight bed frame is perfectly designed for how you live today and in the future. See our entire family of furniture at flighthome.com.
The Source with Caitlin Collins, tomorrow at 9.
We were in Colorado this week for the annual Aspen Security Forum, a gathering of top officials, academics, think tankers, and others in the worlds of foreign policy and national security. I had the opportunity to talk to Ukraine's president, Volodymyr Zelensky, from the stage there. I first wanted to get his assessment of his nation's counteroffensive. Thank you so much for doing this, Mr. President. We know you have many things to deal with, and we appreciate your taking time out of your schedule. We've known each other for a while, and so I think I will begin with a very frank question, which is on everyone's mind. The Ukrainian counteroffensive seems to be going more slowly and has many more difficulties than people might have anticipated. Can you tell us from your perspective why you think these difficulties are, why do you face these difficulties, and what do you need to try to overcome them?
Thank you for the question. Really a very relevant one. I would just like to draw your attention to the change of rhetorics worldwide, and I'm glad to hear that. Now we're discussing the counteroffensive in Ukraine. Ukraine is not backtracking, but progressively liberates its territories, which is very important. We did have plans to start it in spring, but we didn't because, frankly, we had not enough munitions and armaments and not enough brigades properly trained in these weapons. Still more that the training missions were held outside Ukraine, but still we started, and this is important. And because we started it a bit later on, it can be said, and it will be shared truth, understood by all the experts, that it provided Russia with time to mine all our lands and build several lines of defense. And definitely they had even more time than they needed. Because of that, they built more of those lines, and really they had a lot of mines on our fields. Because of that, a slower pace of our counteroffensive actions. We didn't want to lose our people, our personnel, and our servicemen didn't want to lose equipment. Because of that, yes, I do understand that it's always better to see victory come sooner. This is what we also want. But the question is the price of this freedom, of this victory. So let us not throw people under tanks literally. Let us plan our counteroffensive as our analysts, our intelligence suggests, and some of our residential areas have been liberated already, so I do believe in our victory.
President Zelensky, I wonder what you can tell us about what is going on in the Russian army. Your troops are encountering
victory.
President Zelensky, I wonder what you can tell us about what is going on in the Russian army. Your troops are encountering them. And I'm wondering, given what we saw happen in Russia over the last few weeks, do you notice that the Wagner forces are not confronting you on the battlefield, or are they back? Is there a change in Russian morale? Are you noticing something about the Russian army as a consequence of the Prigozhin attempted mutiny?
Я думаю, що ми можемо зрозуміти.
I think we can understand what is happening to the strength of the Russian army, or rather the lack of a motivation, when we see what is happening to the Russian society. Something like that has been happening on the battlefield. They're demotivated. You could see that Putin lost the strength of the vertical of his power, and the steps made by Prigozhin clearly attest to that. Same is happening in the army in Russia. Their citizens, they don't have freedom. And because of that, they are demotivated to the most. They don't see victories in civil life, in military activities.